What's up, family, and welcome to episode 11. Look, I hope that you've been really grabbing a hold of the content and just the topics that we've been talking through over the last several weeks. Man, it's so hard to still believe that we're 11 episodes in, that we're already really starting to build up a cachet, man, of just real stuff, man, solving real issues. And today is going to be no different. Like, we're going to keep our foot on the gas because today we're going to be talking about how to get the most out of your team. You know, I've been having conversations with leaders from all parts of the country. Right now, we're in the process of we're getting ready to roll out a completely new format and blueprint for our programs where we're going to be working with churches, and specifically we're going to be working with churches to help them break through attendance barriers, the 100 barrier, the 250 barrier, and the 500 barrier. And we're really going to be focusing in on working with churches in just all these different platforms. So I've worked with churches in the city. I've talked with pastors from rural areas. I've talked with pastors of church plant, pastors who are transferring and or transitioning a church. Like, I've had conversations with all these different leaders. And one of the things that I'm constantly hearing is just really about the challenges that these leaders are having with their teams. And so today, I want to take a moment and talk about getting the most out of your team because I want to help leaders see how it is that they can make the most of the people that they have. Because, and we're going to talk about this a little bit, but, especially when you're just starting out and even when you've been doing it for a while, sometimes you don't get to choose everything. You don't get to just make the call and say, hey, I want to have the best team possible. If we all had a choice, we'd all have the cream of the crop, the best of the best. We'd have our churches and our leadership teams filled with people who were trained and developed and cultured and all those things, but we don't. And so what we're going to do is that we're going to walk through understanding no matter what your team looks like, how can you get the most out of them? Now, I'm not guaranteeing you that this is going to make your team perfect. And we're going to talk about some of those core things that you got to wrestle through. But this is to go, look, if this is a team you have and you've done your due diligence to work with and to identify the people God has given you, here's how you get the most out of them. All right. So first, let me do an introduction. I never want to take for granted that you know who I am. I'm Henry, the Simple Systems Guy. And today I'm going to tell you three things about myself, real simple. Number one, I love serving leaders. I really do feel called to come alongside leaders and to pour encouragement into them, especially in a time like this where leaders have been struggling and leaders have been hurting and leaders have been fighting all on their own to really make sense of how to lead the church forward in this pandemic. It's a joy of mine to be able to serve leaders, to be able to come alongside them. I love serving the church. I believe that the church is God's plan A and there is no plan B. And so I want to see the church thrive. I want to see the church succeed. And so that's why I work so hard to constantly create resources and opportunities for churches all across the spectrum to get the help they need because that's who I want to serve. And then I love serving the kingdom, man. Like, that's really what Jesus preached. Jesus preached kingdom. The kingdom is at hand. The kingdom is at hand, that we're citizens of the kingdom, all of those things. And so I love serving the kingdom in any way I can. And that means that when I say including serving the kingdom, I'm saying that includes leaders, that includes churches, but that also includes leaders who are called to serve in the marketplace. I believe the kingdom has come to the marketplace as well as the ministry. And so if you're maybe a marketplace leader, somebody who's working what we would call a regular 9 to 5 or leading a business, or you're a leader or executive in a company, wherever you fit, I love serving you too. I want to help you see how the kingdom translates into the business world as well. And so that's a little bit about me. All right. So before we get ready to jump into this discussion around how to get the most out of your team, there's a couple things I want us to wrestle with. You know me, I love to set it up. I'm a preacher at heart. And so I got to give you an introduction. The introduction is where you start to build a bridge between the biblical text and the context of the audience that you're talking to. It's where I like to start to set up the audience to feel the requisite emotion and to think about the requisite issues that are going to help them understand what the scripture is getting ready to say to us. And so I got to do the same thing with you. All right. So here's a question I want to ask. Is your team working? I don't just mean, are they doing stuff? But is it working? You know what I mean when I say that. Like, are things coming together? Do things feel productive? Does it feel like it's moving in the right direction? Is the team working? Right? Because sometimes we can have teams and we can have people and we can have all those things lined up, but it's not working. It's not being fruitful. It's not being productive. And many of us would define working differently. But I think there's this general sense of, are we moving the organization forward? Are we moving the church forward? Are we moving the business forward? Are we moving things forward as we work together? Because I've been a part of teams where we meet together a lot, but it feels like the only thing we get done is a lot of conversation. Well, this time around, what we're wrestling through is it really working? And so when it comes to having a team that really works, there are a couple of challenges. Really, there are some dichotomies that I want to put in front of us that I think sometimes we wrestle with. Number one, we wrestle with availability versus ability. You know, it's been said that the greatest ability is availability. And I get the sentiment behind that statement. It's basically saying if somebody is really talented, but they can't show up and they can't be available, you're in trouble. But you also have to consider that sometimes the people who are available for a reason. They're available because maybe they're committed and they have a lot of time because they're not being pulled on in other areas. Now, that's not always the case, but I'm saying this is a fight we have. Some of us have people who are available, but the people who are available don't have the specific ability that we need to get done what we need to do. And this is true for a bunch of different reasons. Sometimes it's true because the most gifted people will always be in demand. When you're called and when you're gifted, people pull on you from every direction, right? One of the lessons that I've recently really had to hunker down on in my life is I really have to control my schedule, because I get text or inboxed almost daily for people saying, hey, can I pick your brain? Hey, can I talk to you about this? Can I talk to you about that? When people see value in you, they want to connect, right? And it feels really great to be wanted in that way. But sometimes your ability is the very thing that causes a lack of availability because you don't manage your ability well. And so as leaders, we have to wrestle with that, is that I've got available people and then I've got ability people. What do I do when those two aren't the same, right? So that's one issue that we've got to kind of think about and that we've got to solve. Number two is faithful versus fruitful. Is that what do you do when you have this group of people who is really faithful, that they've been around for a while, that they've stood the test of time, that they've been in the church for many years, they have the equity with the people in the church, they really care about people, all those different things, but maybe they're leading a ministry that isn't progressing. Maybe they're being really faithful. And when you tell them to be there, they're going to be there. But when you put something in their hands, maybe they're the servant who received the one talent. That their tendency is to bury what they have instead of trying to constantly push it forward and go to the next step with it. What if that's the reality that they fight through, that they battle through, and you kind of have to navigate some of that to figure out what that is? What if they've got availability, but what you need is ability? And what ability says, I have the right skill set and I have the right competence to take this thing to the next level. That if you put something in my hands, maybe I'll be the servant who received 5 talents. You give me something, you give me 5, I'm gonna double it. Maybe even I'll be the one with 2. I'm gonna at least be fruitful. You give me 2, I'm not gonna bring you back 2. So sometimes the dichotomy we have to wrestle through is, do we choose fruitful people or do we choose faithful people? That's another one, all right? And I'm laying this out. I'm not solving them yet because I think the strategy I'm going to give you is going to help you make the most out of both sides of these coins, all right? Here's a third group. The tell me versus teach me. As leaders, oh my goodness, this is so good. As leaders, sometimes we have tell me people and teach me people. All right, let me tell you what I mean when I say that. Tell me people are those people who, if you give them leadership responsibility, they basically become puppets in your hand. Anything that your hand does, they will do. But if your hand does not move, they won't do it. And so literally their greatest benefit to the leader is that you don't have to physically do the things, but mentally, you still got to do all the work. Mentally, you still got to be able to say, okay, call this person. Now call that person. Now do this. Now do that. And if we're honest, that can become a weight on you. Like that can frustrate you. It can aggravate you because it's like, okay, if I've got to tell you every single thing and every little thing, if I've got to give you instruction on every little piece of this, then you know what? That sometimes it starts to feel like I might as well just do this myself if this is what it's going to be. And then you have teach me people. Teach me people are the ones who are hungry and they're in a posture to learn. And so they don't want you to give them a fish. They want you to teach them how to fish. And if you teach them how to fish, they'll become something. There are some people around you who, if you show them the how and the why and the what, they will eventually learn so that long term you don't have to. But the issue is you've got to slow down enough and you've got to do enough of the thinking to stop and walk with them for a season, knowing that if you do that, eventually there'll be a time where they'll be able to carry it themselves. Here's a fourth group, and this is so good to me already, is you have the my way versus our way. And I think this is pretty self-explanatory, but you've got the my way people who are stuck in a rut of how they've always done things. They're really stubborn when it comes to things like that. They want to do it their way. They want to make sure that it's exactly what they want. They're the my way people, is that they want to do it in the way that's best for them. And many times they don't consider the people that they serve. If doing it on Thursday is easier for them, they don't care necessarily that twice as many people would come if we did it on Wednesday, because they're my way people. They really see everything through the lens of selfishness and through the lens of themselves. Now here's a challenge with my way people. They might have the ability, they might be fruitful, they might be teach me, but they don't have a teachable spirit. And so because they have this my way kind of attitude, the challenge with them is that they're going to do what's best for them, not necessarily what's best for the organization. And then you have our way people. Our way people are those who are willing to embrace that it is what's best for us that's best for me. As a leader, my fruitfulness and my true measure of effectiveness is seen in people, not seen in myself. If I teach a lesson and I walk away feeling good about what I taught, that's not necessarily the solution. It is whether or not the people that I'm serving walk away with a sense of fruitfulness and effectiveness. They'll tell me whether or not I was effective. And so our way people are the ones who are focused on, I'm here for the organization, not here for myself, not here for personal advancement. If that comes, great, but I'm here for us. So it's our way over my way. And so these are some of the dichotomies that we wrestle with, right? And these are some of the things. I don't know, my camera is weird. It keeps going. I guess depending on where I am, the focus looks different. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. All right. So I'll try to stay right here. These are the dichotomies that we wrestle with. And so now these are some of the problems that this system, this blueprint that I'm about to give you is going to solve. So let's look at this quote though. And as far as I know, I made this up. If you saw somebody else made this quote, you can at me, inbox me, whatever it is. And then I'll still probably take credit for it because as far as I know, I made it up. All right. But here is what it says. Leadership is a promise to take people where they cannot go alone. Here is one of the things that you've got to embrace as a leader is that when you become a leader and when you recruit people to come serve with you and serve under you, you're making a promise to them. Matter of fact, you're making several promises to them, right? Because I'm not even dealing with the fact that one of the promises, the unspoken promises of a leader, is that you will care about the people you lead. That's an unspoken promise. And I know it's an unspoken promise because when you don't do it, people revolt. Even if you never verbally say it, people will walk away saying, man, that dude didn't care about me. Man, she didn't care about me. They just wanted to get stuff done. They just wanted to do this. It's an unspoken promise. You never have to say it, but people will always expect leaders to care about them. They will always expect leaders to care about them. So that's one of the promises that we make. But another promise that we make is that we will take people where they cannot go by themselves. And so if that's the case, as a leader, I know we all just want people like, Lord, just send me some good people who got it together, who got it figured out, and they just show up ready to serve. But I'm telling you, even if that kind of person showed up, you would aggravate them. Because when that kind of person shows up and they're that high level of a leader where they know how to do everything that you need done, if you're not prepared to lead them well, they will become frustrated because you will be the lead on the organization. Because really gifted people come with a different set of questions. Hear me. Really gifted people don't just take the cliche stuff that we throw out to everybody else. Really gifted people, they know how to think deeply through stuff, and they can immediately tell when we're not thinking deep enough. They can tell. If you show up to a meeting of really gifted people and you haven't put a lot of thought into what you're talking about and you're not prepared, they're going to know it. And so I'm not saying you shouldn't desire those kind of people, but I am saying is that when you become the kind of leader who can handle those kind of people, then you give yourself a greater chance to receive and recruit those kind of people. Because most leaders recognize when they're in the presence of another leader. And I'm trying to tell you, I'm saying something really hard here, but this is a lesson that somebody told me. A mentor told me almost 10 years ago now. I was complaining about our team and how they weren't ready and how they weren't this. And he said, give it 3 to 5 years. I was like, what is that going to do? Like, is that people going to magically show up in 3 to 5 years? He said, no. He said, but in 3 to 5 years, the people will cease to look like who they were before you found them. And they will begin to look like who you helped them become. You see, eventually, once you've been leading for a while, the organization starts to look just like you. And when he said that, that was a wake-up call like I never had before, and I became much more intentional about developing leaders. And so one of the things you got to realize is you have a great responsibility as a leader to help people become who they could not become on their own. Which means that leadership never comes to the point where it just throws stuff to people and walk away. Is that leadership always has to be involved at the very least in the life of the people that they lead. Even if they can handle the task, I've still got to help them handle their lives, right? I've still got to be there because one of the things that a leader does is that you take people where they cannot go alone, right? And so here's one of the things you want to do. And here's the big shebang. You need to give your team the gift of clarity. Give your team the gift of clarity. Here's what I mean by that, is that when you are trying to shift a leadership culture, or even when you're trying to build or rebuild a leadership culture, one of the things that you have to be keenly aware of is that people don't see what you see, how you see it. They don't see what you see, how you see it. And one of the mistakes that you're making, that you might be making, is believing that what you see so clearly, other people can see just as clearly. Right? Like you see that picture that's on the screen, right? You've got those binoculars. I don't know what the official term for that is, but you know, they're usually on a pier or something like that to help you see out further, right? Well, those things give you the vision of an eagle. All right. So for the sake of this argument, let's say as a leader, you're an eagle, right? You're an eagle. And so as an eagle, you're designed to be flying high in the air and clearly see prey that's on the ground or in the water so that you can, at a moment's notice, dip down, go get it. Because even though you're far away, you can see it really, really clearly. Let's imagine for a moment that somebody on your team is a hummingbird. Or let's imagine for a moment that they're a pigeon. Or let's imagine for a moment that they're a different species altogether, right? They're a squirrel. Here's my point. You think that because you see things so clearly, that everybody around you does. And what I'm trying to help you see is that that's not the case. Every person sees from the elevation of the perspective that they have. Some of the people that are on your team are literally living their lives on ground level. They're standing on the ground. And so that you're talking to them about a forest and they can't see it because trees are in the way, because they're standing in front of a tree. And sometimes that tree is super practical. Sometimes that tree standing in front of them that's blocking them from seeing is a challenge in their marriage. Sometimes it's an issue going on with their children. Sometimes it's just their lack of experience. Whatever it may be, but from their perspective, they might be standing in the general vicinity of what you see, but they don't see it the same way you see it. And so you have to understand that. And so as a leader, one of the greatest gifts that we can give to the people we lead is the invitation for even just a moment or for just a project or in just one area to see things from the elevation and the perspective that we see them from. Right? When I think about this, I think about Moses, right? Think about Moses for a second. Moses spends 40 years on the backside of the mountain with God. Then he comes out and gets the Israelites out of Egypt, and then he starts taking them through the wilderness towards the promised land. And time again, they would watch Moses walk up into the glory. They would watch him go up the mountain, go up Sinai, go up this mountain to go be with the Lord and come back. Every time he went up the mountain, they knew he was coming back with something for them. Maybe he was coming back with the law. Maybe he was coming back with the tabernacle. Maybe he was coming back with some strategy, whatever it was, but he was coming back with something. His entire introduction to them is that, hey, I spent time on the backside of the mountain. I saw God through a burning bush. Now I'm coming to get you so I can take you back to that same mountain to go and show you the God that I experienced. And what happened when he did that? He went back to show them the burning bush, and the whole mountain was on fire with the glory of God. And the people struggled to handle it because they themselves could not fathom having that depth of a relationship with God like Moses had. So what they preferred to do was see Moses as a hero. Now, in a perfect world, as we live under grace, every person knows that we are a kingdom of priests and they themselves can ascend the mountain of the Lord and go and engage and interact with him themselves. But that's not how people work. Most people like a representative for almost every area of their lives. We love representatives. We love to have that's why we cheer on our favorite sports team. The athletes who wear the jersey that we love, that jersey changes and we know we can't wear it, but we cheer for our representatives who can. That's why they love their pastors, because we're the ones who are called to be the representatives that hear from God on behalf of the whole house, so that we become mouthpieces for God to speak to what we're doing. And so what I'm just helping you see is I'm just helping you build a mental framework for how people work and why you have to give your team clarity. Eventually, God speaks to the people in Moses' day, and the people get terrified and they say, listen, from now on, Moses, you go talk to God and then you come talk to us. We don't want him to talk to us. We can't handle it. Moses, we're going to need to hear it from you. All right. And so what does Moses do is that he does just that. He speaks to the Lord. He engages with the Lord and he comes back to them and lets them have it. And here's a challenge for Moses. Moses has to have moments where he goes on the mountain, spends days, weeks in the glory of God, and comes down and finds the people dancing naked around a golden calf. And yet, his responsibility be to solve that issue. And now let's start building culture towards where God is trying to get us to go. And so as a leader, one of the things that you have a responsibility to do is to give your team the gift of clarity. And I'm about to give you a tool and show you a tool and a framework to help you do that, right? I'm giving you a tool and a framework that will help you do exactly this so that you can see what this looks like when you fully embrace it, all right? And as we step into this, I'm going to show you 6 questions that you need to answer. Now, when I'm talking about these questions, here's what I'm saying to you, because this is something I've adopted myself. Anytime you ask anybody in the church, anybody on your team to do anything, if you would take the time to answer these 6 questions first, I promise you, you might be surprised at the responses that you get. All right. Now, I'm going to go into this a good little bit, but this is actually going to be a full training that I'm getting ready to upload into our program. So when you sign up for our Breaking 100 program, before you even go into the systems, this is going to be a part of our bonus content. I'm going to give you a full breakdown of these questions, what they look like, how you deliver them, how you format them. I'm even going to give you a template to say, hey, look, here's a template that you can take, print off, put it in a binder, and you can literally write it out, type it out, and then just email it to the people and have a conversation with them and be done with it. All right. But here's the thing. Here's the general premise of this is that if you want to maximize your team, you have to be willing, at least for a season, to take on the responsibility of doing a lot of the heavy thinking. You have to be willing to take on the responsibility of doing a lot of the heavy thinking. Like, you've got to do that. You've got to make sure that you're taking that responsibility, because I know it feels exhausting and it feels tiring, but you've got to set the culture. You've got to set the pace for where you're trying to go. All right. And so here's what I'm challenging you to do. I'm challenging you to think deeply about these 6 questions first. And these questions, writing these questions out and answering them helps you think deeply about what you really want from people. But as you do that, now you can pass it on to them and give them full clarity for what's coming next. All right. So let's dive into it. Number 1, the first question you must answer is the question of purpose. Is that you must make it clear to your team, to the people that you're dealing with, why are we doing this? You've got to answer that question. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this project? Right? If you're saying to your children's leader, hey, I want to host Vacation Bible School. Because here's what some of us do. Hey, I want to do Vacation Bible School first week of June. Can you put that together? All right, appreciate it. And then we walk away. And we like, man, why they can't just do it? Like, all they got to do is go Google it and go look it up, because that's what I would do. But they're not you, right? One of the primary reasons, even today in our nation, during the Great Resignation, one of the primary reasons people quit their job is when they feel ill-equipped to do it. And a part of being equipped is information. And so you have to make sure that you lay out a purpose. Everything God did had a purpose. Everything he created had a purpose. Like, everything had a purpose. And likewise, anything you ask people to do, you need to be crystal clear about the purpose of it. You need to be crystal clear about why you're doing what you're doing. And so you want to lay out to them, okay, what are we doing with this? Why are we doing this? Right? What's the purpose of this particular project, of this particular ministry, of the team you're asking me to build? You got to answer the purpose question. Number 2 is you need to answer the question of importance. Why is this important? Why is it important that we do this right now or at all? Why is it important? You got to realize this. Your team will not always have the same sense of urgency that you have. And so the things that you're looking at, they're not always seeing. right? So for me, right now at the time of this recording, I feel the urgency of God preparing to send a wave of people into our church. Now, I don't know if the rest of our team feels that. Now, some of them are probably thinking about it because we do have some very intuitive people, and then I have talked about this a good bit. I have said it. I've announced that I felt it coming, that I sensed it was coming, all those kind of things. But are they thinking about it at the level I am? Probably not, because this is the primary thing I'm thinking about, right? I'm thinking about how to lead our organization well. And so what I've got to communicate is if I say, and this is a very real example, if I say to our children's ministry director, hey, look, let's get ready for Vacation Bible School. Say, what's the importance of this? We want to create some secondary opportunities for people to engage with faith and engage with our church. So in essence, what I'm saying is this is important because we don't want to just lean on a church service for people to connect with us as a church. We also want to have some other opportunities, and Vacation Bible School fits it. So that's why it's important. It's important because this is going to help us transition from the spring into the summer, right? So you just got to make sure that you're clear in telling people what is the purpose, why are we doing this, what are we doing, lay it out for me, and then tell me what's the importance of it. Now, here the third question is where it starts to get nice and real. What's the ideal outcome? Right? Because if you tell me to go plan a Vacation Bible School, okay, great. But what's the ideal outcome of this whole thing? Well, that some new people who have never been to church come to Vacation Bible School and then eventually transition into the church. That's an ideal outcome, right? That would be great. If some new people who didn't know about us before learn about us and then decide to come and worship with us, that's an ideal outcome, right? And so for the team that you're building, you've got to think about that. You're asking somebody to build a youth ministry, right? What's your ideal outcome? Well, that eventually our youth ministry is the same size of our church, or so that eventually we can have one night of the week set aside specifically for the youth group to use our entire sanctuary for the number of kids that they're seeing, right? All of those things. What's the ideal outcome? This is clarity. Listen to me, because when you answer these questions, you're helping your team see the way you see. You're lending them your sight. All right. So this is the third question. Number 4 is the question of possibilities. So you've got to answer the question, if we do this, what's possible? Like, you gotta give people vision. You've got to cast vision for what this could be and what could happen here. See, if you give people a task, you're just telling them what to do. But if you learn to cast vision, you're telling them why we do it. And if they understand why we do it, everything is different. Everything is different. I remember the story I heard of these men who were working on a building project together. They asked as these 3 men were working on the construction project, they asked all 3 guys. They said to the first guy, they said, hey, look, what are you doing? He says, what does it look like I'm doing? I'm laying bricks. And so he was sitting there laying down bricks. They asked another guy, they said, hey man, what are you doing? He says, oh, I'm building a wall. And so he kept on going because he understood that the brick was a part of something bigger, which was the wall. Then they asked the third guy, they said, hey man, what are you doing? He said, I'm building a cathedral where hundreds of people will come and get a chance to experience God for themselves. Oh my goodness. That gives me chills. Which kind of leader are you? Are you the kind of leader who all you can tell people is that I need you to lay bricks? Or is your vision limited to you building a wall? Or when you're trying to get them to lay bricks, are you painting the picture of the people standing in the cathedral with tears rolling down their faces as they experience God for themselves? Are you painting the picture of all the children who are going to be baptized and whose lives are going to be changed because of what you're doing together? Are you painting the picture of the marriages that are going to be saved and revived because of the word and the ministry that's going forward in the church? Are you painting that picture? And see, when you give people the gift of clarity in the form of possibilities, what you're doing is that you're casting vision and you're saying, if we do this well, here is what the future is going to look like down the road. If we do this well, not just what it means for our church, but if we do this well, here's what this means for you down the road. I was speaking to one of our team members a couple of months ago, and I said to him, I said, hey, I want you to start a young adult / college ministry in our church, right? And he said, okay. I said, but stop, I'm not finished yet. I said, let me tell you why. I said, I need you to get the experience of building this college ministry, because you haven't yet had to build a ministry from scratch. I don't want the first time you have to do that be when I send you out to go and plant a church. I said, and I do believe that you and your wife have the gift and the calling to one day plant a church. I said, but in order to get there, I need you to first learn to build a ministry. I need you to pull a team together to walk with you in it of some college students we already have in the church. I need you to come up with a strategy to go on the campus and to start reaching college students and bringing them back. I need you to develop a full ministry offering for those young adults and college students, including outings and small groups and all those different things. And I want you to build it up until it's strong, because some of the very people that you build for this young adult ministry are going to be the ones that we could potentially send with you when you get ready to go and plant a church. And so now, I don't know, I don't think he would have had a problem with just building a college ministry before. But now he can see the full picture of the possibilities. Because too often, as leaders, we act like stuck husbands. Y'all know how husbands can be, because I'm telling on myself first. We just want to tell you what to do. You don't need to question it. You ain't got to answer all this. Just go do it because I say it so. When really and truly, the task could get done with joy if we cast vision. Can I tell you the difference between casting vision and giving people a task? If you give people a task, you get obedience. But if you give people a vision, you get submission. Oh my goodness gracious. If you give people a task, you get obedience. And they just walk through. He said, do this, this, this. But if you give people a vision, you get submission. And they come underneath the vision that God has given. And now they can begin to find a vision for their life within the vision of the church. One of the reasons so many churches struggle to keep leaders is because you won't dream big enough. If you can't dream big enough for people to find their vision within your vision, you're going to lose them when they get a sense that their vision is bigger than yours. So they move on to what's next because they do not see what's currently happening. They don't see it as being enough to be able to handle what God is calling them to do. Oh my goodness. Let me keep going. Number 5 is that you've got to answer the question of risk. See, with these 6 questions, here's what we're doing, is that we're really addressing the point that different people respond to different things. So by hitting all 6 of these questions, you really increase your opportunity and the likelihood that you'll touch on the pain point and the trigger point of every person that you're dealing with. So some people, you're going to cast a vision to them and they're going to get excited because they love thinking about the future. And then there are other people who the way that you're going to get them is by making it very clear what's at stake in this project. By talking about the risk, what you are saying to them is that here is what it's going to cost us if we don't do this now and if we don't do it well. So I cast this vision, for example, to our connections leader. And I said, hey, we need to get this ministry up and running and get our assimilation tight, get our discipleship class tight, get all those things tight while we can. Because right now we've got 3, 5, 6 people coming through the class. I said, but the day is going to come where it's going to be 25 coming through. The day is going to come where we're going to see a larger number of people. So the day is going to come where then on top of just the people who are coming into class, we're going to have people ready for baptisms. And we're going to have so many visitors that it's going to take a team of us to make all the phone calls. Eventually that day is coming. And if we don't get ready now, what's going to happen is that when that day shows up and we're not ready, some people are going to get hurt along the way because they're going to reach out to us. And because our systems aren't in place, we're going to drop them. And that person might not go to another church. That person might not decide to walk with God again. They might not give us another try or another church another try. So if we don't do this, it's going to bring on us a problem that may not seem prevalent now, but it's coming down the road. Hey, why do we need a young adult ministry? Well, because we see that that's one of the larger demographics in our church. And we need more energy, and we want to have every generation represented in our church. If we don't build the ministry, then when they come and they look around, they won't see people like them. And so they won't be sure how they fit. And so we might lose them because they're going to think we're all married with our families. We don't understand what it's like for them to be young in college and trying to figure it out. So you know what? To give us a chance to minister to them and to get them to Jesus, we need to prepare for it now. You have got to lay out what are the risks. If we don't do this, then what? Okay, we don't get it done, then what? Some people aren't taking seriously what you're asking them to do because they don't see the risk involved. They don't see the full value of the problem that you're asking them to solve. And so you have got to think through that with so much clarity that you give it to them. All right. Last question you got to answer is the question of specifics. The question of specifics. And so here's what you got to think about, because we talked about the ideal outcome and the purpose and all those things. But with the question of specifics, here's what you're saying. Here are the specific things that I would like to see done within this task. All right. For example, let's use the Vacation Bible School example again. So here's what I would really love to see happen. Number one, build a team. Pull together a team of at least 5 people so that you all can work together and begin to work this. You'll be the team that's responsible for it, because I don't want you to wear yourself out. Number 2, once you get the team, I want y'all to choose the curriculum. I want y'all to choose the Vacation Bible School curriculum. What are we going to be doing? How is it going to look? How is it going to go? I want you to lay all of that out so we'll be ready and we'll be excited to start supporting you and roll forward with you on the next thing. All right. Next, what I want you to do is that I want you to work with our graphic designer to make sure that we've got the graphics for it. Another thing I want you to do is make sure that you get the post in to our social media team so they can get it out. I want you to do that because here's what I would really love to see. I would love to see us serve 100 new people for Vacation Bible School. I would love to see 100 people who don't currently come to our church come to Vacation Bible School. And then I would love to see a 40% retention rate. If people come to Vacation Bible School, I want to see 40% of them come back, right? So the specifics can look like whatever you want them to look like. But you need to tell people exactly what a win looks like. Because if you say, hey, look, I want you to put together a team, and I go, okay, and I put together a team, and that team ends up, or a ministry, that ministry ends up being me and one other person. Technically, I did what you said. You need to define what a win looks like. And I would not recommend being super numbers driven with this, because you want to really focus on lead goals, not lag goals. If you don't know what that is, you can go back and look at, I believe it's episode 2 or 3, where I talked about lead and lag goals, but you can go back and check that out. But I want you to just think about being specific. And here's the thing. When I put this together, I try to give a paragraph for the first 5. And then for number 6, I give some bullet points, usually 5 to 7 bullet points. And so by doing this, really what I'm doing is I'm saying, all right, here is how we're going to make sure that our team has the clarity that they need in order to drive this thing forward. And here's what I'm telling you. I took this on and, I wasn't fully sure it was going to work. And when I tell you my mind has been blown by what people have brought to the table, in addition to what I brought to the table, it's nothing like it. People, time after time after time, have shown up, have stepped up to the plate, and have taken their teams, their ministries, their projects to places that I would have never imagined. And you know what I did? I answered these 6 questions, and then I did a one-on-one with them to clarify anything else they didn't understand. Right? I said, okay, look, let's talk about it. I want you to look at this, read over it, and let's schedule a meeting in a couple of days. And we schedule a meeting, and in that meeting, we get together and we sit down and we talk and we start working through and this, that, and the other. And then all of a sudden, you look up and it's like we got clarity. And now since we have clarity, they can go out and do what they're called to do well. One of the gifts that you give as a leader is you give people the gift of being fully aware of what your expectations are from them and what they can expect from you. Right? So listen, I hope this was good for you. I hope you really got something from this. As I said before, I'm going to put a full training on this, including our documents, in the program, our Breaking 100 program. It's going to really be in all of our break-in programs, in our Gather, Grow, and Go programs. In all of those programs, we're going to have a full training here. And so if you've been thinking about trying to break through certain barriers, break through with your team, break through with all these different things, then I want to encourage you to click the link that's in the description of this video and go over and check out our program. Check out coming into the Simple System Society and being a part of Breaking 100, Breaking 250, or Breaking 500. And let me come alongside you and help you and walk with you to get to the next step and to get to the next level. All right. I hope this has been a blessing for you. I look forward to seeing you again real soon for our next episode. Until then, keep the gear.